Thank you. Mommy Akaroma. Ekabo. Mommy Crowder Ekarom. Okay. Maybe you're far away from your mic, but good morning, everyone. I think it's going to be a beautiful day. Oju Morenima Ekaro. It's going to be a beautiful day. It's going to be a day of knowledge, so to speak. We're going to get information, get informed, and get some deeper understanding of Nigerian history through the perspective, well, not just through his perspective, but using him as like the catalyst, to get into certain things in Nigerian history. Let's keep our topic, please. I can see the amber alert. Let's keep our topic, everybody. And we want to get the likes to, it's almost 10K, so you've done well. Thank you very much. Don't stop, please. Let's keep doing it so that way we can have the live on the FYP. So Ayodeji, welcome. It's a beautiful day with you and your saga. I'm glad to be here. We had a wonderful session yesterday, and we were talking about. Oh, what were we talking about yesterday? Wait, oh my king, wait. I was thinking someone's going to remind me. 1 second. I was now. I was thinking of tomorrow and the day and the next few days according to schedule. So yesterday we discussed the intellectual property of Ife and the exports to Benin. I'm not sure we eventually got to the exports bit. We just spoke a little about the beads. I didn't really talk about the bronze heads and the brass casting and the techniques that they took to Benin, like the lost wax technique of making brass. We didn't really get into all of that yesterday. So maybe another day we'll go again and talk about bronze casting in Benin and how the very roots of what Benin is now known for actually came out of Ife, and that the very first person who went there was requested for by Nobel Benin, and the name of the man who was sent was Iwege, and again I pronounce it like a Yoruba person. So if there's a better Edo way of pronouncing it, just know that the spelling is IghueGhae, and he was the one who was sent from Ife not only to just make brass, but then to teach the people in Benin how to do so. And eventually, the Igbo streets that we now have in Benin has its descendants on there, where they continue the tradition of making bronze. Maybe another day we're going to talk about that more often, and then we're also going to talk about deeper. We also talk about what happened in 1897 that led to the casting away of many of the bronze heads that have been made, or brass, products that have been made in Benin, and you find them in Germany and France and England today. But that will be another day. Today we're talking about a person who, for some reason, has become this polarizing figure in Nigerian politics. So he's an elderly person, he's an elder statesman. Oh, they can start by he's somebody who has paid his dues, and it just so happened that because of the way Nigerian politics is, some people have, for some reason, chosen to disparage him. And I think one of the reasons might be because of his ethnic group. There are people, for instance, who go around telling everybody. I was somewhere some days ago, and I heard one of those people say, let's forget about tribalism. And I don't think we should be bigoted towards people, right? You shouldn't be bigoted. You shouldn't be hateful towards other people. However, I think one of the mistakes that we have made with definition of terms in Nigeria is that we chalk ethnic nationalism to tribalism. In other words, outside of a space like Nigeria, whatever many people are called tribalists for, those things will make them to be called nationalists if it was another context. So, for instance, if Yoruba were to be Germany now, when a Yoruba person speaks up for his people, you're not going to call it tribalism, you're going to call it nationalism. And the reason we call it tribalism is because for some reason, people's head are still, hung on the idea of tribes within Nigeria. There are tribes within Nigeria, but Yoruba is not one of them. Yoruba is a nation with its own tribes, and when people say words like be detribalized, these are buzzwords that have no meanings. And again, this is not to justify hate for any group. No normal person should go around being bigoted or hateful towards people. However, it's important for you to speak up for your people and to also set the record straight, which is one of the things we're going to be doing today. Now, the person in question is Wole Soyinka, and today we'll be talking about him. We talk about his accomplishments, his achievements, the things he did, the lies that people tell about him. I just remembered it now. I just remembered it now. And the funny thing is that even Yoruba people spread this lie, right? We're going to speak about those things. What he did as a student, what he did as an adult. Welcome, Ade Ankara. Welcome, Adejo. That's Omoba. Welcome. Good to see you. We'll talk about all that. And then we'll talk about his accomplishments, right, in the literary world. And we'll also talk about the part he played during the Biafra struggle and how, if there's anybody in this country called Nigeria who should be disrespected by those who are clamoring for Biafra, that person definitely cannot or should not be Wole Soyinka. But times have changed, and Asheri Gbagboria now. And we want to remind ourselves what it is that he did and how we got to be where we are today, and not to cower in the face of the mob. Because let me say this, and I'm going to give me a second, please. Sorry, somehow I'm surrounded by schools, so you hear kids there and then some other kids up there. But I hope the noise is not too much. So I was going to say something that if anybody should be criticized or maligned or disparaged when it comes to certain ethnic groups in Nigeria, Wole Soyinka shouldn't be that person, going by the things that he has done, the fact that he spent time in prison for this same group of people. And thank you very much, Adankara. And I think that a lot of times, because we don't talk about these things, we also forget. And then we join the mob to castigate our own. One of the things that you see on social media these days is that it's just like it's a microcosm of the society where people are led by the mob. It's like the tail is leading the cat. The tail is determining where the cat will go. And that's what you see, right? And then you see a lot of people, even Yoruba people, joining the bandwagon to cast aspersions on people like Wole Soyinka. But who is Wole Soyinka? So we're going to be talking about him. We'll talk about the things people have said about him. Some of those things are true, some of them are lies, some of them are lies, and we get deep into it. So I'll be reading a few books. I'll be reading. I don't know if I'm going to read all the books, but I think we're going to get some things from all these things. I'll read Ake, the Childhood Years. I'll pick some things from there. Ake, the Childhood Years. It was one of the books that he wrote. It was his first autobiography. Then there's another one called You Must Set Forth at Dawn. Thank you for the gift, my reality. Welcome. There's You Must Set Forth at Dawn. Then there's another one called The Man Died. Those three books Wole Soyinka wrote, but there are other books that other people wrote that I'm going to be referring to. A book like There Was a Country by Chinua Achebe. I'll tell you more about that book when the time comes. There's another book by Kole Omotosho called Just Before Dawn, and there is My Command by Obasanjo. And there's a book by Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. So, and then there's one more book by Wole Soyinka called Open Soul of a Continent. So we're going to be going through those books. And the reason I like to read, sometimes we have these sessions where I just talk. But when it comes to certain things like this, I prefer to read because that way I'm able to tell you where to go. And if you have any qualms, you can have it or have those whatever qualms you have with the writers and not with me. So let's start at a very so let's start at the with the simple things. Let's talk about him. I'm just going to read an overview. Thank you, my reality, for the roses. I'm just going to read an overview of who Soyinka is, and then we'll get into other things that are specific. So this is the overview. Welcome. Let's keep our tapping. Let's keep sharing. It's going to be a wonderful session today. Wole Soyinka was born in Nigeria and educated in England. In 1986, by the way, he was born in 1934, right? In 1986, he was 52 at the time. The playwright and political activist became the first African to receive the Nobel Prize for Literature. He dedicated his Nobel acceptance speech to Nelson Mandela. Soyinka has published hundreds of works, including drama, novels, essays, and poetry, and colleges all over the world seek him out as a visiting professor. So let's go into his early life. Wole Soyinka was born Akinwande Oluwole Babatunde Soyinka on July 13, we use the opportunity to talk about other things as well. I hope you're cool with that. So let me ask you a question. You get everybody in the comment section. When you hear Soyinka, few questions. Number one, or Soyombo or Showumi, where do you think that person is from? Without anybody having to tell. If you're Yoruba, you should be able to answer this question. Without anybody having to tell you their hometown, where do you think they are from? So if you hear Shodeke, Shorumu, Show, no, I'm not telling you what it means. I'm saying where is the person from? If you hear Soyinka, Shotunde, Shodimu, all right, thank you. So more often than not, that person will be from Abeokuta, right? Now, second question. Somebody already answered it, but I'll ask it in a different way, like we're in class. So, what does Soyinka mean? Thank you. I done. What does Soyinka mean? Soyinka. When I was growing up, what I thought was that show means no. Soyinka does not mean Orisha Oko. Soyinka does not mean Orisha Oko. What does Soyinka mean? Did your mama fail exam? That is a bella rokututu. I'm waiting for you. Orisha Oko Yimika. Thank you. Thank you. I'm waiting for you. The Osho is what I mean. Oh yes, yes. Deji, see the person that wrote before, just before you. See what they wrote. Osho Yimika. So that's what we used to think. And now this is actually very correct. Osho meaning wizard, right? But the right answer, the right thing has also been written by Deji and someone, a few other people. So Osho, when we were growing up, when you hear the word Shoyinka, Shojobi, Showumi, we started thinking that Osho not saw you, Osho be Osho Ataje, so Osho as in wizard. But of course, we now know, and thanks to the people in the comment section, that when you hear show is unparo journey. As a matter of fact, it's like double the word show is actually from a longer phrase or for a deity. The deity is not Osho, it's actually Orisha Oko, right? Orisha Oko. And then when you contract those words, you have Oshaoko. There's a place in Ibadan called Olo Oshaoko. It's close to Oje. You hear Olo Oshaoko. Olo is a contraption of Orishaoko. Osho is a contraption of Oshaoko. Sho is a contraption of Osho. So Sho itself is from Osho, which is from Oshaoko, which is from Orishaoko. So Osho also means wizard. By the way, I'm using the word. By the way, I'm using English translation loosely, not to say that that's exactly what it means in Yoruba, but sometimes you just look for the closest counterpart in other people's languages. So in the Egba people worship the Orisha Oko, right? It's one of their major deities, and so Orisha Oko lo di Osha Oko lo di Osho lo di Sho. So Soyinka really would be Orisha Oko Yinka or Orisha Oko Yimika. So it's more about the deity than about a wizard. I just felt we should all learn that, so that at least we're taking lessons on the meaning of names from Shoyinka's name itself. Let's keep tapping, please. 1 second. So give me a second. Let me find my way back. Meanwhile, okay, sea dogs. There's so much to talk about. Talk about today. Rather, even in the Jabo, we have people worshiping Oshako in Abeokuta. Yes. Ẹjọ́ má bínú o. Somehow mo ti kúrò tí bá ti jáde kúrò ní page yẹn, ó máa ń le fún mi láti padà lọ. All right. So let me just continue, or perhaps start all over, since I took a break to discuss Orisha Okoyimika. All right. So Wole Soyinka was born Akinwande Oluwole Wole Babatunde Soyinka on July 13, 1934, in Abeokuta near Ibadan in western Nigeria. His father, Samuel Ayodele Soyinka, was a prominent Anglican minister and headmaster. His mother, Grace Eniola Soyinka, who was called Wild Christian, was a shopkeeper and local activist. Let me stop to say this as well. So there's something in Ake that's actually very interesting. Maybe I'm going to read it about Wild Christian. So if you read Ake, which was his first autobiography, he mentioned he would call his mother the Wild Christian, and then he called his father Essay. So I'm sure a lot of us know this, but I'm stopping to say this so that that we were learning other things, right? That Eniola Soyinka was actually the connection that Soyinka has with the Kuti family. So Eniola was Oludotun's sister. Oludotun was Fela's father. And Eniola was one of the people that was in Abeokuta Women's Union. I think we had a session on, oh, no, it wasn't. We had not started all this Yoruba things when we did it. So maybe another time we'll do a session on the Abeokuta Women's Union and how they formed it. That's from Lai Ransom Kuti, some other women, but it also included Eniola Soyinka, the woman who became Eniola Soyinka. So Eniola Soyinka was sister-in-law to Funlayo Ransom Kuti, and that's why Soyinka, Wole Soyinka, and Fela, and all of them, they are cousins. Yes, mommy, yeah, first cousin of Fela. As a child, he lived in an Anglican mission compound, learning the Christian teachings of his parents, as well as the Yoruba spiritualism and tribal customs of his grandfather. A precocious and inquisitive child, Wale prompted the adults in his life to warn one another. He will kill you with his questions. Well, that's in quote. After finishing preparatory university studies in 1954 at Government College in Ibadan, Soyinka moved to England and continued his education at the University of Leeds, where he served as the editor of the school's magazine, The Eagle. He graduated with a bachelor's degree in English language in 1958. In 1972, the university awarded him an honorary doctorate. In the late 1950s, Soyinka wrote his first important play, A Dance of the Forest, which satirized the Nigerian political elite. From 1958 to 1959, Soyinka was a dramaturgist at the Royal Court Theatre in London. In 1960, he was awarded a Rockefeller Fellowship and returned to Nigeria to study African drama. In 1960, he founded a theatre group, the 1960 Masks, and in 1964, the Orisun Theatre Company, in which he produced his own plays and performed as an actor. He has periodically been a visiting professor at the universities of Cambridge, Sheffield, and Yale. Soyinka is also a political activist, and during the civil war in Nigeria, he appealed in an article for a ceasefire. He was arrested for this in 1967 and held as a political prisoner for 22 months until 1969, all because of Biafra. In 1986, upon awarding Soyinka with the Nobel Prize for Literature, the committee said the playwright, in a wide cultural perspective and with poetic overtones, fashions the drama of existence. Soyinka sometimes writes of modern West Africa in a satirical style, but his serious intent and his belief in the evils inherent in the exercise of power are usually present in his work. To date, Soyinka has published hundreds of works. In addition to drama and poetry, he has written two novels, The Interpreters 1965 and Season of Anomy in 1973, as well as his autobiographical works, including The Man Died, that's one I talked about earlier, The Man Died, Prison Notes in 1972, a gripping account of his prison experience, and Ake, 1981, a memoir about his childhood. Myth, Literature, and the African World, 1975, is a collection of Soyinka's literary essays. This is just an introduction. We're going deeper into specific things. So this is just an overview. Now considered Nigeria's foremost man of letters, Soyinka is still politically active and spent the 2015 election day in Africa's biggest democracy, working the phones to monitor reports of voting irregularities, technical issues, and violence, according to The Guardian. After the election on March 28, 2015, he said that Nigerians must show a Nelson Mandela-like ability to forgive President-elect Muhammadu Buhari's past. as an iron-fisted military ruler, according to Bloomberg.com. Soyinka has been married 3 times. He married British writer Barbara Dickson in 1958, Olaide Dowu, a Nigerian librarian, in 1963, and Folake Doherty, his current wife, in 1989. In 2014, Soyinka revealed he was diagnosed with prostate cancer and he was cured 10 months after the treatment. So let's just take the quick facts and then we'll go into some of the specific things, starting with the court's allegation, you know. But let me just take the quick facts. So we know he's Wole Soyinka. He was born in 1934, July 13th. He was born in Abeokuta, from Nigeria. He's male. He's a writer. He works in writing and publishing, journalism and non-fiction, fiction and poetry. He went to University College, University of Leeds, and Government College, Ibadan. All right, now let's get to. I saw something online about how the things that he writes are too difficult to understand. So there's a particular person. I don't know if she actually understood what she was saying in that video, but then she alluded to the fact that you couldn't understand Shoyinka. And yes, sometimes it can be quite verbose, like he uses big words and all of that. But I think there's something that people have to understand when you're reading Wole Soyinka. Let me read some of his quotes and then I'll explain something. So one of them is, a tiger doesn't proclaim his tigritude, he pounces. So again, we're going to go into the deep stuff, right? But let's just play around with a few stuff. So what do you think that would mean? Mommy and Ida were already saying, it's actually the play that got him a humanist position as Nobel. Oh, okay. So Mommy, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I'm here. Ẹ káàárọ̀ o. Ojúmọ́
Yes, yes, ma.
Adúpẹ́ o.
So, a tiger doesn't proclaim his tigritude, he pounces.
No, mi ò come across ẹ̀. Ṣé Wọlé Ṣóyínká ló sọ?
Okay, ma. Guys, let's keep Ben, ma. Ben, ma. Everybody, let's keep tapping. I can see the amber alert. Let's keep it green. Let's take the light to 20K. Thank you very much. So let's go back to it. So Wole Soyinka has a way with words, and sometimes he coins his own words, right? He uses this literary device, like when you say tigritude, of course, it's from tiger, right? So basically, he comes up with stuff. But there's particular quote of his that I think is probably the most popular after the tigritude one. It's the man dies in all who keep silent in the face of tyranny. I think it's one of the things that you understand when you it's one of the things that you get when you understand how he maneuvered the military dictatorships in Nigeria. Now I know that in recent times, a lot of people, particularly younger people, have been asking for the military to come back to Nigeria. And I always say that they probably were not there when the military, when they were in charge, because it wasn't cool, it wasn't fun. It was one of the most terrible things you could ever experience. All this thing that people go on social media and talk, you will not even be able to say anything, right? And people had to go through a lot, and Shoyinka was one of them. But let's answer this question about his involvement with Sea Dogs. Now, I have my answers, of course, but so it won't just be me alone speaking. I'd like anyone who would like to contribute. Kazim Salami, I like what you're typing. Death and the King's Osman. If you don't mind coming up, it'd be nice to hear your thoughts. But I wanted to say, I wanted us to talk about the allegation of him starting cultism in universities, because I hear it, and I hear it from some Yoruba people, and I'm using the word Yoruba intentionally. Yeah, some things people can say about you outside, but when your family
I
members
know about
join
that
the
cultism something. I've been to the party. Kí lorúkọ àwọn people yẹn náà Pyrates. I've been to their party, a Christmas party in UCH. They weren't cultists. They were just like club for young university guys. I went to their party in 1979, and there was nothing like cultism. It was a night parlor party in UCH. House party, we should say, because it's in a duplex in one of the doctor's quarters. And there was nothing like cultism. There was no fear. There was no harassment. So I don't believe it's a cultist something. The cultist people may later say adopt that name, pirates. But the pirate Wole Soyinka started wasn't cultism. It was more or less like
Thank you, ma'am.
activist something. That's all I can
Thank
say
you.
about it.
Thank you. Thank you very much, ma'am. So I want to start this particular bit of that conversation. So with Shoyinka, we've talked about his early years, the overview. We're going to talk about the cultism charge. We're going to talk about his Nobel Prize and the things that went down. And we're going to spend a lot of time talking about Biafra. So let's talk about this confraternity thing. And I even see some people laughing in the comment section because when you hear the word confraternity in 2024, what you think about is you think about the cult groups. But you guys watch, even if you have not been to the US, you watch movies where you see, you know, fraternities and sororities in American universities. What do you think those are? So I'm going to read something to you about fraternities and sororities. Especially, I want to use North America because I know that our culture today is largely influenced by the North American culture through Hollywood, whether it's the music, the movies. So we see things from their perspective. So I'm going to use that to explain what Shoyinka was doing when he was in UI. So in North America, fraternities and sororities are social clubs at colleges and universities, right? So you have, they call them fraternitas and sororitas. By the way, fraternitas just means brotherhood, and sororitas means sisterhood. There's no big deal. So when you hear fraternity, it's talking about brotherhood. When you hear sorority, it's talking about sisterhood, right? In North America, this one that everybody likes to shout, something's happening in the US. Fraternities and sororities are social clubs at colleges and universities. They are sometimes collectively referred to as Greek life or Greek letter organizations, as well as college fraternities or college sororities, to differentiate them from traditional, not university based fraternal organizations and fraternal orders that have historically acted as friendly societies or benefit societies to certain groups, unlike the ones mentioned in this article. Generally, membership in a fraternity, in fact, let me just quickly say something. Thank you, facts. Alpha, Omega, Zeta, Delta, Phi, all those things they use in in the US. So let me quickly say this. Nigerian education, our schools, our educational system has to do better because there are graduates under the sound of my voice right now who don't believe what I am saying. Because as far as they're concerned, confraternity means what it means today, even if that's not what it meant 60, 70 years ago. It was a social club. But I'm going to get there. Let me say a little more about fraternities and sororities. Generally, membership in a fraternity or sorority is obtained as an undergraduate student, but continues thereafter for life by gaining alumni status. Some accept graduate students as well. Some also provide honorary membership in certain circumstances. Individual fraternities and sororities may vary in organization and purpose, but most, especially the dominant form known as social fraternities and sororities, share five elements. So I want to read the five common elements that you will see, the five elements, common elements that you're going to see in fraternities and sororities. Someone say wrong audience. No, it's not wrong audience. It doesn't really matter. By the way, let me say this. All the recordings we're doing, all the live sessions we're having here, we're recording them and we're posting them on YouTube. So if you go to my YouTube page, Busui Oris, you will see we even posted Ajayi Crowder among the Yoruba and Igbos. We posted that midnight. So you will see those videos. It's like 10-part series. So what we're doing right now, we also posted there. There's nothing like wrong audience. This is a very, very perfect audience. We need to educate ourselves. So there are five things that you will see as common elements in fraternities and sororities in universities generally. Number one is secrecy. Number two is single sex membership. So it's only male or female. Number three, selection of new members based on a two-part vetting and probationary process known as rushing and pledging. Number four, ownership and occupancy of the residential property where undergraduate members live. Number five, for the US now, they have even the ones in Nigeria back in the day, or not the ones that do now. The number five element is a set of complex identification symbols that may include Greek letters, memorial achievements, ciphers, badges, grips, hand signs, passwords, flowers, and colors. A couple of weeks ago, I saw a video on TikTok where some guys, one of them was driving a flashy car. He got out of the car, and then his friends were there, and then they shook hands by using little finger, their little fingers. So they basically shook hands with let's say shook their fingers. Now, when people saw it, the first thing Nigerians started saying on that comment section is that, oh, see this cult group, see this cult, they even brought it outside, see this cult. Meanwhile, that is just the Kegaite's secret handshake. It's Kegite. And please, I'm not saying that there are no cult groups. I'm not saying that people are not, wreaking havoc. But I'm saying that we need to be educated as a people, so that when you hear things like Soyinka started something, you're not just like, it's true. That's why, if it was a child of God, now I will not do that. They were having a social club like young people elsewhere do, right? And the reason they will do that is because when you do that to another person, you know that you are from the same, you belong. I was never in Kegite. I didn't join any confraternity, but I understand what it was that they were doing at the time. Of course, everything changed by the time we got to school. By the way, when I even got to school, there wasn't even any. The only thing you could join in Ife was a fellowship, which I gladly joined, and I'm thankful to God I did. But the point of the matter is that the idea that what you see today is what it has always been is actually a product of ignorance, because it was never that, right? So what he had, or what they founded, and I'm going to read about them. One second, please. Mm, I'm going to read two accounts, right? Let me read first the first one. In 1952, author Wole Soyinka, later a Nobel Prize winner, and a group of 6 friends formed the Pyrates Confraternity at the elite University College Ibadan, then part of the University of London. They dubbed themselves Magnificent Seven. Igijagade, great or great. All right. Kazim, okay, that's fine. That's fine. They dubbed themselves Magnificent Seven, G7. Soyinka and his confraternity peers observed that the university was dominated by wealthy students associated with the colonial government, and a few poorer students who often mimicked the wealthy students. Meanwhile, campus social life was dictated by tribal affiliation. Soyinka would later know that the pirates wanted to differentiate themselves from the stodgy establishment and its pretentious products in a new educational institution, different from a culture of the hypocritical and affluent middle class, different from alienated colonial aristocrats. They were just trying to separate themselves from those who have been so influenced by the middle class, or by the lifestyle of the British, the colonialists. The organizations adopted motto against all conventions and used the skull and crossbones as their logo, while members adopted themed confraternity names such as Captain Blood or Long John Silver. When fellow students protested a proposal to build a railroad, okay, so let me even stop there. So the reason they started Pirates, again, I was never in Pirates, I was never in confraternity, I was in fellowship all through school, I was even a minister, I won't go beyond that. But when it comes to understanding things from an academic standpoint, we've got to stop being childish and being pedestrian in sharing lies about what a particular person did, especially when they didn't do it. So Pirates Confraternity was founded because they were trying to create a space for themselves where people, regardless of their social class, could mix and intermingle, right? So whether your parents were middle class or they were from the poor backgrounds, you could just be in that group and you felt safe. You felt you had friends because we were all in the university, right? In university, right? So it was not about having meetings to unalive somebody or to do cultism. And I'm going to keep putting this thing out because I think it's important for us to know what he represented and what he still does represent today. And yes, they had a very interesting motto, against all conventions, which makes sense because who were they? They were young people. Young people are usually rebellious in nature. It's just the way young people are. And for the people who are always saying, look at what they are doing, you were also like that when you were a younger person. If you're a teenager, if you were ever a teenager or you were in your early 20s, most likely you rebelled against authority. You wanted to change things. Although you didn't know what you were doing was probably stupid, but you just felt that it was time for you to change things and you come up with things like against all conventions. But it makes sense for that age, right? And then yes, they have this very interesting symbol, which was the skull and crossbones. So basically, there's even a story about that. But I'll leave that to you maybe later. Basically, when you see the skulls, as if you're looking at death. So I think it also have that impression on people. But guess what? And this is a very funny thing. And I pray that Nigerians actually get free from colonial mindset. When you see this and you see skull and crossbones as the symbol of pirates, you think, oh, that's death. That is, why would they use that kind of symbol? Like, why would they do that? That seems demonic. Like we say here, right? Christians, even Muslims, everybody now is very deep. It's demonic. But the funny thing, when you look at skulls and bones in America, that just about every past president in the US belongs to what they were in school. You never thought of demons or demonic activity. You just felt it was cool. So it's cool. I just mentioned it, ETC word. I just mentioned it, interestingly. In the US, it is cool when you see skulls and bones. Just about every single American president has gone through skulls and bones. They were members of that group when they were in college. And once they are done with school, they keep having, these alumni meetings where they keep interacting and such that, if you need, that's networking really. You want to work, you're able to get something from someone, you're able to connect, you're able to network. And that's how societies actually grow. And that's why many of the American presidents have been members of Skulls and Bones. But you have no problems with that because it's from America, it's cool. But as soon as you hear that Wole Soyinka did something similar in University College Ibadan, to you, it is a cult, right? It's a cult. So we've got to disabuse our minds. This thing of anything that is white is right is actually, we are still dealing with remnants of the colonial mindset that was left, with us. And the colonialism that we're experiencing today is not so much the presence of British or of the British in Nigeria or what America is doing. It's more what is in our heads about who these people are. So if it's good for the goose, it's also good for the gander. If you can think it's cool for America, then understand that these young people in the 1950s were also doing something that was cool to them. And yes, they also had the interesting pirate themed. So think about it. When I was in school, I started an organization in Ife, and the organization, I won't tell you the name, but one of the things that I did back then was I changed the spelling to mirror what I felt it should sound like or what I felt it should look like. So we will spell new as NU. We will spell five as figure 5 IVE. The same way they spell pirates with a Y. So they had PYRATES. So they had Pirates with a Y Confraternity. And when they wanted to name themselves, right, the 7 guys, they gave themselves names that pirates would bear. Names like, Captain Blood. But again, if you don't understand where they're coming from and why they did what they did, all you just be shouting that, oh, see the person that started cult, see the person that started cult. Oromio Black, Ekaro, Ekabo. You just start insulting them and say, oh, these are the people that started cultism in Nigeria. That was not cultism. That was just a group of young people having fun. And also, you will see the other things that they did because they were in that group. Yeah, so they had Captain Blood, Long John Silver, and things like that. So let me read something to you, what they did as young people. When fellow students protested a proposal to build a railroad across the road leading to the university, fearing that easier transportation will make by the way, I know this particular railroad and I know this particular university, this particular road as well, and the rail. When fellow students across the road, When fellow students protested, let's keep tapping, please. Let's tap, let's share. When fellow students protested a proposal to build a railroad across the road leading to the university, fearing that easier transportation would make the university less exclusive, the pirates ridiculed the argument as elitist. Roughly analogous to the fraternities and sororities of North America already mentioned earlier, the Pirate Confraternity proved popular among students, even after the original members moved on to create another confraternity. Membership was open to any promising male student, regardless of tribe or race, but selection was stringent and most applicants were denied. For almost 20 years, the Pirates were the only confraternity on Nigerian campuses. So that's what they were, right? I just thought that it was really important for me to um, address that because it seems to be like this blight on this person. When everybody talks about him, they have to mention that he founded something called cultism. He did not start cultism. Confraternity was about brotherhood, or the fraternity was about brotherhood. And the pirates they had. I mean, think about it. So let's even think about this. So even I presume that many of you would know this that Ekaro Omoba, that if the very first rail line or railway in Nigeria was from Lagos to Ibadan, was built in 1901, right? If you know Ibadan, the Dugbe station was actually built in 1901. Um, but at some point, instead of the thing terminating at Dugbe, they wanted to take it inland, right? And they're going to go through a place called Songo. Now, if you know Ibadan very well, if you're coming from Mokola and you're going to UI, you have to go through Songo. So, welcome, Parakoyi. So, that railway was going to go through the road at Songo, and the students of UI at the time in the 1950s were against it. But the pirate guys who were not, who just felt that this thing is meant to help people, you know what they called it? They said the argument against the railway was elitist. In other words, to be a part of that confraternity, you even had to have enough sense to think. To think. You have to be a cerebral person. You have good grades. You know, you were seen as someone that was responsible. Not this thing where everybody's trying to, show power and all of those things. That's not what it was about. So I hope we answered that question. We're going to cut this part out and put it out there because I think more people need to understand that when you talk about Wole Soyinka, it has nothing to do with cultism in Nigeria. Does anybody want to say anything before we go on? Mommy or anyone in the comment section. Does anybody want to say something? Welcome, Mr. Tayo. Mommy, you were typing in the comment section. Do you want to talk? Okay, let me continue. So we've answered that one. Now there's something else. And this is also one of the things that people talk
After
about.
the 80s, university
Okay.
students get so powerful that once they want to protest, the government takes caution until when students come out and all these miscreants on the streets start to join this team for distraction. In those days when students union, when they talk, the government listens because they know they are very powerful. But not nowadays. It's so disheartening.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. And I think it's important for us that when we want to discuss, just like what Mommy just said, when we want to discuss history, it's important that we don't project today's realities on past events, right? Like whatever is happening now is happening now. Does not mean that that's how people were. I mean, look at NAS today. I mean, it's like it is what it is, right? I don't want to go into that. But then the point is, when I was in school, for instance, if NAS if NAS decide to sneeze for whatever reason, just sneeze, the government itself will catch cold, especially those from certain schools like the one I went to. So, but that does not mean that that's how they are today. So I think it's important. I want to know how much I can get to later, please, sir. I don't
You
even
if
think you're. I don't even
you
think.
if you
Mommy,
if
Mommy, Parakoya, I don't know why you would ask that question. And I don't even think people
where's
that ask the
Frank?
question the way you did are actually doing it because of another agenda. So, no. When it's time to talk about it, I'll talk about it, but not. not because of what you just typed. I don't know why you typed it that way. And if
That's another this thing.
yeah, that's another lie. But we'll talk about it. But
What I'm
that's
saying
not
is
why we
that
are here today.
if a students they don't have time, they are always reading. Even if parents look for them, you go to their campus, you can't get them in the hostel. Always reading because they know the educational level there is very high. I mean, the demand is very high, and they are strict with their how do I say it? How they rate their students. You miss a mark, you are it's carryover for you. Unlike the other, I think the other universities they don't have as high this thing rating as Ife. We know Ife to be highly academic. I went there for
Thank you,
the
man.
science show one time from secondary school. At We went to Ife to science students went there to celebrate the science this thing with them. I remembered, but it's been a long time. That's 72. It should be 1972.
Thank you, man. Thank you, man. Um, Barakoyi, if you are from Modakeke, go and ask your folks at home how Modakeke got there. If you are based in the UK and are from Modakeke, ask your folks at home. They'll tell you how your ancestors got to Ife. But facts, University of Lagos is there as well. Of course. Don't worry, there are many good schools. Um, don't let me bring out the Ife color in me. Oak and honey, good to see you. So yeah, we still do have many good schools, by the way, very many good schools. So we've spoken about the bit about cultism. I've made it very clear that no, he did not. Facts. Thank you very much. You're far too kind. Ayodeji, great. Esego. Um, let me enter our I feel like singing anthem, but let me not do that. Let's just get back into the conversation. Um, I think I should mention something about him. Let me read from. I was going to go into the Nobel Prize and the things that happened when he became a Nobel Prize winner, but I think I should hold off on that for a bit. Let me see. 1 second, please. There's something I saw that I feel I should read. So he came back to Nigeria, and one of the things he did, well, he started lecturing at Ife. He did some work in Ibadan. Then he eventually went to Ife, and at Ife he taught. He still has a place. When I was in school, there was an office dedicated to him. Even though I don't think I ever saw him in that office, but he has an office there. I think he should still have that office in dramatic arts department. But let me read another thing about him. Should I go into this yet? You know what? Let's go according to the schedule that I've written down. It's a bit easier for me that way. So what have we learned? We've learned about how he started life. I would have loved to read some things from Ake. Do we have time? Let me read an interesting episode. Something that happened in Ake. I saw it this when I was just laughing. Let me read it. So if you have the book, by the way, I don't know where you can get it, but Ake is quite popular. Childhood years. Um, we'll read a bit of that. We'll also read The Man Died and You Must Set Forth at Dawn. That's the book he wrote after he got out of prison, or while he was in prison. And then it was published afterwards. So let me read something from Ake between himself and the Wild Christian. And just to be sure that we're all following, can anybody tell us who the Wild Christian was? We're going to get into it too. I just want to make sure that we're all following. So can anyone, tell us who the Wild Christian was? There's a person called Soyinka called Wild Christian, and I already mentioned that earlier. Black Abbey, Lord Byron. Thank you. Thank you for working with me. So let me read something that happened with his mother Eniola. In fact, let me even read a bit Mm, okay, it's quite long. I'm just going to read from page 5, okay, and then we'll get into some other things. Very soon, I'm going to discuss what happened when he got his Nobel Prize and what certain people said about about the prize and what he now said in response. So this is something about Bishop's Court. That was where they lived, I guess. Bishop Court of Upper Parsonage is no more. Bishop Ajayi Crowther will sometimes emerge from the cluster of hey, Abati Berepoloyimbo, Hydrangea Bougainvillea. Probably talking about plants. Just tell us it's plants. Anomic face with popping eyes. Anomic face. Ah, Ebulele. Well, not a busher, but I think he's looking at it from the child's perspective. Anomic face with popping eyes, whose former photograph at first stared at us from the front space of his life history. He had lived, the teacher said, in Bishop's Court, and from that moment he peered out from among the creeping plants whenever I passed by those houses on an errand to our great aunt, Mrs. Lijadu. Do you remember? Yes, to pronounce it is the work, but thank you. Mrs. Lijadu is their grandson, and I usually use what their Lijadu twin sisters. Um, one of them has a grandson who came on the platform last week. But this Mrs. Lijadu is the mother to those twin sisters who are also related to both Fela and Wole. So Bishop's Court had become a boarding house for the girls' school and an extra playground for us during the holidays. The bishop sat silently on the bench beneath the wooden porch over the entrance, his robes twined through and through with the lengthening tendrils of the bougainvillea. I moved closer when his eyes turned to sockets. My mind wandered then to another photograph in which he wore a clerical suit with waistcoat, and I wondered what he really kept at the end of the silver chain that vanished into the pocket. He grinned and said, "Come near, come nearer, I'll show you." As I moved towards the porch, he drew on the chain until he had lifted out a whole button and the face. Then he winked one eye, and it fell from his face into the bowl of the watch. He winked the other, and this joined its partner in the watch. He snapped back the lid, nodded again, and his head went bald. His teeth disappeared, and the skin pulled backward till the whitened cheekbones were exposed. Then he stood up and, tucking the watch back into the waistcoat pocket, moved a step towards me. I fled homewards. I read down that one. Bishop's Court appeared sometimes to want to rival the canon's house. That Bishop Ajayi Crowther frightened me out of that compound by his strange transformations. I think it's more like imaginations, right? He had a very vivid imagination as a child. So I want to read something that the mother did based on this story. So just please stay with me. That Bishop Ajayi Crowther frightened me out of that compound by his strange transformations only confirmed that the bishops, once they were dead, joined the world of spirits and ghosts. I could not see the canon decaying like that in front of my eyes, nor the Reverend JJ, who had once occupied that house many years before, when my mother was still like us. JJ Ransom Kuti had actually ordered back several gummies in his lifetime. My mother confirmed it. She was his grandniece, and before she came to live at our house, she had lived in the Reverend JJ's household. Her brother, Sonya, also lived there, and he was acknowledged by all to be an Oro, which made him at home in the woods, even at night. So apparently it's 2 generations back, not even just Oludotun. On one occasion, however, he must have gone too far, talking about his uncle now. They had visited us before, she said, to complain. Mind you, they wouldn't actually come to the compound. They're talking about Oro. You guys, you know what Oro is, Javi? So I'm not just reading to myself. Do we know what Oro is? Let's keep our tapping, please. Oro is like spirits that live in the woods, like a demon that lives in a tree, something. They live in the woods.
We were nearly caught one night by the Orus. But you see, Oro is a deity that comes out.
Oro mo fẹ́ sọ,
Oro.
ọ̀rọ̀,
Oro is different from Oro.
ọ̀rọ̀.
Oro is who
Yeah, oro is,
they
yes,
our
spirit.
demons.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
But
Ọ̀rọ̀ mo fẹ́
Oro
sọ.